my God, the diversity question. Everyone hates this question, but I'm going to hopefully give you a guide to how to address it. And I hope you enjoy it. Let's get to it. What's up, everybody? So today I got an awesome video for you guys. It's about the diversity question. And if you don't know what the diversity question is, I will introduce it in a bit. But before we even get started, I just want you all to know that this is a video that's applicable to anyone applying anywhere, right? I saw this question when I was applying to college because a bunch of college app people asked this. And I also saw this question when I was applying to medical school because a bunch of medical schools asked this. So this video is useful for both of those types of students. So with that, let's get started. What is the diversity question? Well, as I mentioned to you already, the diversity question is applicable to both college apps, which are starting soon. I think they're starting in August or maybe even September. And they're also applying, this question also applies to med school applications, which are already out. What exactly is the diversity question? That's the number one question you probably have. Well, the diversity question is a question along the lines of how will you increase the diversity of our campus, right? And it's usually it's not put in simple words like that. It's kind of complicated. So let me give you some examples, okay? Here's some examples. University of Michigan Medical School had this prompt on their secondary application. It says, at the University of Michigan Medical School, we are committed to building a superb educational community with students of diverse talent, experiences, opinions, and backgrounds. What would you as an individual bring to our medical school community? And then look at NYU's med school. NYU's med school said the admissions committee uses a holistic approach to evaluate a wide range of student qualities and life experiences that are complementary to demonstrated academic excellence. What unique qualities or experiences do you possess that would contribute specifically to our school? That's exactly the same thing, right? It's just asking you, how are you going to increase the diversity of the school? More importantly, aside from just being asked this when you're writing up your application, the diversity question is also going to be asked if you interview at medical schools or if you interview at undergrads. I cannot be more sure of a question that will get asked because this question gets asked a lot. Okay, so with that being said, let me first take you through the approach many people have when they see this problem, and then let me take you through the revelation I had near the end of my application cycle that I personally think helped me and I hope will help you. So first of all, the tendency here when you address this question, the tendency here is most people like to think of diversity in terms of race, sexuality, immigrant experiences, primarily because that's kind of the way the educational system talks about diversity, right? Like if you go to your Office of Diversity Affairs on campus, that's usually about race or sexuality or some sort of immigrant experience. So it's not that it's bad to think about diversity in terms of that. It's just that most people think of it in that term, and that kind of constrains them from thinking about what else it could mean. However, I'm not trying to discredit race, sex. I'm not trying to discredit racial diversity, sexual diversity, or even immigrant experiences as diversity. Those are all really, really great if they apply to you, but diversity goes beyond this. And sometimes, just sometimes, like myself, when you try to stick to these three, it really constrains you from seeing what else about you really makes you diverse. Because I'm sure these three could be the thing that makes you diverse, but there's also other stuff out there that could make you a lot more diverse that you might not have thought of, okay? And now let me go a bit into why do schools even care so much about diversity, right? Why do they care so much? Well, I think I'm going to quote the Harvard Medical School admissions dean, because he said, you cannot have an orchestra if everyone plays the same instrument, right? If everyone played the same instrument, everyone would just sound the same. So you want to have a community where everyone is different because you learn a lot more from people that are different. I think that's the number one thing I learned in college. You learn a lot from people that don't come from the same background as you. And that's because they have a different perspective. And learning from that perspective really can enhance your personal well-being and intellectual ability, right? So that's why med schools, undergrad schools, all these schools care about diversity. And with that being said, they want to know what niche you're going to occupy in the incoming class. Are you going to be the class president? Are you going to be the one that might not be super talkative, but will go out of his or her way for what he's passionate about? Are you going to be the one that kind of helps your classmates whenever they need help? What kind of person are you going to be? Right? Because I kid you not when I say this, these med schools and undergrad schools, the really big ones, have hundreds of students that have perfect grades and SAT scores. And trust me, they don't need more of them. They don't need a class with perfect grades and SAT scores. Instead, they want a diverse class. They want people that are different from each other and in a way that's great, right? I take the example here of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs struggled through high school, wasn't the brightest student, dropped out of college, and even after that, he went on to create this massive empire of Apple. And they basically, like med schools, they want people like Steve Jobs. They want to know people who are going to be different. They want people who are passionate about certain things. All right. So that's kind of what you want to think about. Like, what niche are you going to occupy, and how does that contribute to the person you are? So let me talk about my personal revelation. I didn't have this until like the end of my med school cycle. So I don't want you to think that I knew this going in, because in my application, I wrote about my immigrant experiences, which was not the best way for me to go, because I realized diversity is broad, right? I kept getting asked this diversity question so much in interviews that I thought about it and thought about it. And then I had this revelation, because I was like, man, I don't have to think about it in terms of just my immigrant experiences. I can think about it in terms of my experiences and passions, right? So what about you is different? Are you passionate about, I don't know, chemistry? Are you passionate about chemistry? If you are, how have you shown that passion? Right? Because if you say you're passionate about chemistry, that's pretty diverse, you know? Or if you say you're passionate about, I don't know, business, and you're applying to medical school, that's really diverse, because now you're a medical school student applying to medical school with a business background. That makes you diverse, right? And if you're passionate about X, how have you shown you're passionate about it? What did you do to show that, right? I have some friends who have played musical instruments their whole life, and then they applied to med school, and the med school loved the fact that they've played this musical instrument, right? Similarly, you know, for me, my thing that I reflected on after a really long time of reflection was like, my big thing that I was passionate about was like changing the pre-med culture, changing it into a culture of collaboration rather than competition. That is diverse, because there's this entire culture that clearly has stayed stoic for ages and ages, and here I was trying to change that, and that's kind of diverse about me, right? Or even someone, one of my friends, he's also pre-med, but he's a rapper. His name's Fludonius. Check him out. But the point is, a pre-med student who's a rapper, like that's amazing, right? And now I'm going to quote a bit from Stanford Med School, because Stanford Med School preaches this whole thing of like, you should always be a doctor and X. What is that X for you? Because whatever that X is for you, that's what probably makes you diverse. Like, are you going to be a doctor and a runner? Because that's diverse, right? Are you going to be a doctor and a, I don't know, tech enthusiast, right? You could think about that in terms of undergrad applications too. Are you going to be a college student and something else, right? Hell, you could even be like a League of Legends all-time player. That makes you diverse, okay? So think about what you are. Are you a student and X? Because that X is what makes you diverse. So let me give you my personal example. My answer, when I actually answered this question on paper, my answer was just about immigrant experiences and overcoming challenges. That's valid. I still respect that a lot. But the problem with that is there are a lot of immigrants, and that comes across as cliche, because how can you be diverse when everyone else tells the same story as you? That's not diverse. That completely conflicts the meaning of diversity. So by the time I was interviewing, I got this question a lot. I thought about it, and I had this like spark, and I was like, you know, I'm unique. Because, first of all, I mentioned to you earlier, I'm passionate about changing pre-med culture. That was the one thing I kind of stuck onto in undergrad. And specifically, it was in a very entrepreneurial way, right? I created a club in undergrad which was intended to assist pre-med students and help change the culture. I created this very own YouTube channel to do the same thing, right? And believe it or not, I actually created an organic chemistry board game, primarily because I knew organic chemistry was so difficult. And these three things, you know, I created them on my own, but I realized that the underlying thing behind them was this passion to change the culture, which is huge, right? Because every time I brought this up in an interview and I was like, yo, I have a YouTube channel, they're like, what? That's pretty insane. Like, how many med school students do you know that have a YouTube channel? Or I was like, yeah, I'm making a board game. They're like, wait, what? You're making a board game? Like, what? How do you, what? Aren't you supposed to be doing research your gap year or something? Like, they found that different. That's novel. And so it was really surprising to me, because the answer was staring me right in the face all along, but I never looked at it because my mindset was constrained by what I thought diversity meant. But it can actually mean a lot more than that, okay? And when I brought it up in interviews, as I mentioned to you, I got good reactions. So, just some last minute tips. If you're trying to address this question, think about where you see yourself in your future class. As I mentioned to you, everyone should be a doctor and something else. What is that something else for you? Are you the person who's going to go out of your way to be class president, lead your class? Are you going to be the person that's going to promote some sort of, I don't know, are you super passionate about, I don't know, clean water bottles? You could be something as small as that is huge, okay? Because something like that is going to set you apart, and that's what these people are looking for. Not necessarily in terms of sexuality, race, or even your immigrant experiences, but maybe in terms of anything you've done in college that has reflected the type of person you are. And last but not least, if you're watching this video and you aren't applying, take this video to heart. You can build on what I told you here by actually recognizing what your passions are and building on them, right? Focus on aspects of your personality that you see as different and make it happen. I have 2 younger cousin brothers right now that have their own YouTube channel, and they're just grinding, and they're grinding because they love it, right? Like, that's unique to me. I'm like, dude, you guys are in like 8th, like, no, they're in high school, but that takes a lot of guts for them to do that, right? I have another younger brother right now, and he's like working with his dad to make a game, and like, that's pretty awesome. So think about what's going to make you different and go after that. Okay, and the general belief is it's much better to be really good at one thing than to be somewhat good at a lot of things. And that's the one thing that a lot of people think they need to do everything. No. If you can do one thing really, really well and kind of elaborate on it through your experiences, you will be much more willing to write about it because now you have this underlying theme throughout your application. But by no means am I advocating that you change your entire passion or your entire life to try to match one goal. If you're interested, if you don't know what you're interested in yet, by all means, explore it. But if you know what your passion is, stick to it. Promise you, it's going to be really, really great for you to stick to it. Develop it in unique ways. Don't just like do the traditional route. You know, like some people are like, I'm passionate about community service, so I'm president of my community service club. And I'm like, all right, but anyone can do that. Anyone can be president. That's a traditional hierarchy. Do something else. What kind of service are you interested in? Are you interested in service to the elderly? Start a club that serves the elderly. You know, go to a clinic nearby and like see if you can organize a partnership. Like, try to think of new ways to address your cause because that will truly, truly set you apart. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is my 2 cents about how to address that diversity question. And please let me know if you have any questions. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.